Welcome to Accounting Yard YouTube channel.
Once again, I want to say welcome everyone to Accounting Yard webinar on Excel for accountants. The idea is to share, learn, and help, and that's what we hope to achieve. The idea is that we understand the fact that a lot of accountants need Excel in their day-to-day work, and that's why the webinar was created, right? And our sole purpose is to ensure that we deliver value and ensure that everybody has a good knowledge of Excel in carrying out their day-to-day work. The first day we carried on from the perspective of carrying out a lot of functions and features in Excel. Today we have little functions, then we move on to application of Excel, right? Where we work on loan schedule, reconciliation, and aging analysis. That's what we apply it to. Right. So without wasting more of our time, I'm going to share my screen now. And if I am too fast, please call my attention to it. If I'm too slow, tell me to. If you need me to repeat a particular task, let me know on time, right? Let's not go too far, then come back. That would defeat the aim. So as I'm dealing with it, I'll ask, and you cannot send a message on the chat box that you don't understand or you need clarity on a particular area. So that as much as possible, we are all in sync in terms of handling that particular task. Yeah? Okay, so moving on quickly. I want to check, everyone can chat so nobody's blocked. So I can share my screen now. Yeah, good. Summary. So yesterday I talked about functions and features, and also mentioned the fact that there are channels I personally use for Excel, which are listed here. So anytime when we share the workbook, you can leverage on that. Now, today we'll be starting with index and match. Now, Vlookup on its own can only look from left to right, right? So meaning that if I'm looking for something in the middle, and the character I'm using to find it is also not in the extreme left, Vlookup cannot handle it, right? Or let me not say Vlookup cannot handle it. The basic functionality of Vlookup cannot do it. There are complexities around it whereby you can make it work. However, that is just making it unnecessarily complex. However, you have a function or you have a feature called index and match. Yeah? Okay, I should slow down. Okay. Okay, I'll slow down. Thank you for letting me know. So I talked about Vlookup yesterday. Vlookup, typically, let me open the workbook where we did Vlookup. Yeah. So if you remember very well, when we're doing Vlookup here, if you take notes, we're looking for this GL code, right? From this data set from here to here. But what you take note of in the Vlookup function was that this particular data, right? The lookup value, which was this. If you notice in data array, it was in the first column, which is column D, right? So, but if, for example, this, what I did to search is in the middle, Vlookup cannot handle it, right? If this 203, this GL code, for example, right, was in the middle, Vlookup cannot handle it. However, with index and match, you can actually retrieve data from the middle or the center, as the case may be, right? Regardless of what you're using to find it. Vlookup, index and match will be able to handle it, right? Now, using that as an example, yeah, back to this. Using that as an example, right? Now, you have a data set, for example, and we have various plant 1 and plant 2. Example. And you want to know the unit cost that it will cost you to produce based on giving a particular plant or a particular city, right? Now, if you want to get that value, you have a data here, which I'll color. You want the data here. If you want to get the cost of plant 1, yeah, plant 1, this is plant 1, so these are all the data along plant 1. Yeah, and you want to get the city cost for plant 1. City is what? This is column 2. This is city 1, this is city 2. So basically, you want to retrieve this data here. What you do is, what you most likely use an index function. Now, what do I say? What's index? Index, yeah, you have the array. This is the array in index. It needs you to specify the row and the column. For the sake of argument, you see me just use numbers. 1, which is city 1, and plant 1 and city 2 equal to. You see it retrieves 1.35. Because what Excel has done now is, which row am I interested in? If you look at the function again, let me type it. Is equal to index, right? You have the array, which is the data set where the answer is located. You have the row. So what row are you looking at? So if you look at it in real sense, this is row 1, row 2, and row 3, right? Why the column? This is column 1, column 2, and column 3. What I'm telling Excel to do with index in this particular scenario is fetch the data in row 1 and column 2. And what is that? This is row 1, and this is what? Column 2. Where they intersect is what I'm telling Excel to help me retrieve. Yeah? So this is the intersection of the two numbers, and that's 1.35. If I change it to, for example, I want Excel to give me second row, right, and third column. Can you give me 1.25? Because that's what? This is my second row, and this is my third column. And that's what index does, basically. However, index would not know the row or column to retrieve data from. What would help in determining the row that Excel will retrieve data from is a match function. That's why most times when people mention index, someone is not on mute. Who is that? Okay, so basically that's what Excel does. So now that's why most times when you talk about index, right? What happens is that you use the combination of match. What does match do? This is what match basically does. Match returns the relative position of a data in a data set. What do I mean? You have people on a queue, right? Maybe at the ATM trying to retrieve money. Everybody has their names, right? Now, what match will do is that you give it the name of a person, right? He looks at through that queue and says he's looking for Ola. Ola is on position 3. What you now do to return number 3 because I'm on position number 3. So in this particular scenario, if you look at plant 1, for example, if for example, what I want is say I am looking for plant 1. Let me do a quick trick. I am going to do something and you will see what happen. I will convert this plant into data validation, right? Where I select data validation, list, yeah, and select this, right? Okay. Do the same thing for city. Yeah, city, data validation, lists, and I select the cities. Yeah, okay. City 2, plant 1. Yeah, so I have it there. Now, plant 1, if you look at it from here, 2, 3, plant 1 is located on location 1, right? So I'll make use of the match function to tell me what position is plant 1 in the list. How do I write that? Let me write the match function. Match. It tells you what value am I looking out for, what is the lookup array, and what is the match type. Similar to how we had in Vlookup, where we had true and false as the last argument. Match also has a similar scenario, right? So what basically we'll do is we'll tell it what it should look for and tell it where it should look for that data. It will now return the location of that data in that data set. So match always return a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's follow that order, right? So I'm going to write it here. Is equal to match. Equal to match, right? My lookup value is the data I'm looking for, which is this, comma. I'm looking for it within this data set, right? And that is what I'll do. I lock it, comma, 0 because I want an exact match, right? An exact match, and I close my bracket and I press enter. Can you see that returned 1? And what is plant 1? 1, 2, 3. Plant 1 is located on location 1. If I turn to plant 3, what does it give me? Returns 3. Because plant 3 is on what? Location 3. 1, 2, 3. Right? Similar to city, I can copy the same, I can repeat the formula again. Equal to match. I'm looking for city 2, comma. Where am I looking for it? I'm looking for it in this data set. What do I want? I lock it. I want an exact match. I put 0, close the bracket, and I press enter. And it's a return 2. Now, with these two values, I can simply write my index without a problem. Equal to index. What is my data set in this particular answer? Is this set, right? What do I want? I want my row is a plant. And my column is what? Is a city. And I close my bracket. Can you see? It has returned what? 1.45 because yeah, okay, yes, 1.45, right? If you look at it, plant 3, this is where the data is, and my city is city 2, where they intersect here, and that's my answer. So if I come here and I change it, plant 2, can you see 1.45? If I turn to plant 1, for example, 1.35, because this is plant 1, and the city is city 2, which is 1.35. If I change the city to city 3, for example, yeah, you see there. Yeah, hold on. All right. So doing that as is made, right? I don't know if do you understand the general principle around index and match? Was there any question? Any question? Before we move on.
Yes, kindly recap, please.
Okay. So I said that first, you need to understand the index and match work together, right? Index is similar to what Vlookup does, but in a way, it's more dynamic. It helps you retrieve data based on where you will provide it. In secondary school, then I don't know if you remember matrix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? Remember in matrix, this is a 3 by 3 matrix, right? Now, you remember that time that will say 1, 3. So this is row 1, column 3. So you turn 3. That's what index does. However, the position it needs to retrieve data from, it doesn't know. What helps you in determining their location is match. Match will help you get the relative position of an item in a data set. All you just need to do is give you the data it needs to look for, right? So I give an example of an ATM queue where you have people lining up to get money from the bank, right? If you go to the ATM queue and a lot of people are lining up to withdraw money, and you are looking for Ola, and Ola is located on the 4th position, what to do is that if you give it Ola, it will return 4 for you because Ola is located on the 4th location. Now, what we now did was we did use data validation to change this into a list and try to use match to get the location of plant 1 in this location here. If you look clearly here, plant 1 is located on position 1, right? What match does is that match, yeah, you tell it the lookup value, tell it where you want to look for it, which is here, and the type you want, the exact match, right? Enter, and it does that. If you look at it, plant 1 is what? Is location 1. Same here, if I change to plan 3 is working on position 3, right? So that's the same thing we did here and also did here. The next part is index, equal to index, right? You need to specify the data where your answer is, that data set, right? Select it. Next is tell it what location the answer you're looking for, where it's located. In this particular scenario, is location 3,3, right? And that's 1.115. This is location 3.3, 1.15, and that's the answer you're getting here. Typically, what you will see most people do, instead of writing the formula, breaking it down into this you are saying, what will happen is that they will write match, the first match here and the second match here to give the whole formula, to combine it, right? I broke it down for ease of understanding, right? So typically, over time, if you are learning index and match, your first time of writing it, you may just break it down like this. But over time, as you improve, you would now start writing the function inside the function, right? But for ease of understanding, you can break it down like this so that you see what you are doing and it's clear, right? If you are with me, I believe that's clear, and we can move on to another scenario. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
you can move on.
All right, that's fantastic. So now I'm going to apply, you see me apply two functions now. You see me apply maximum, right? And I'm going to see me apply maximum and index. You see me apply maximum, index, and match. I'm going to combine the three in this particular scenario. Okay, I've already given the answer in a way. Best profit. What will help you determine what best profit is? What function needs to be able to determine what best profit is? Yeah, you can send a message on the chat room. What function do you think would help us determine what best profit is? Okay. Okay, in the absence of no response. Maximum, okay? So if you remember from last class, we did maximum, right? So we're time best profit, which is obviously, when you say best profit, it's the number of the highest number, the profit is the highest number. So equal to max, right? I select the data array and close it. And the best profit is what? 5640. Now, don't forget that I have gotten the best profit, but I need to get the best order, right? To get the best order is based on the best profit, right? Yeah. So because of that, what will happen is that if I can get the location of my best profit, then I can get my best order. Are we together? Following that principle, I write is equal to index, right? My answer, where is it located? It's located here. But I need the location, right, of my best order. I need match, comma, match. What am I looking for? I'm using my best profits to search, comma, in what data sets? Here, so I can give me my location. I want an exact match, comma, 0, right? Close the bracket. I'm closing my match function, and I close the final bracket, and I press enter. And I've got to my best order quantity. Yeah, does that make sense? So I'll repeat myself. First, I'll make use of max, to get my maximum profit, the profit to the what gives me the best profit. Next, to break it down, I'll make use of match. I want to know the location where my best profit is in the list of all profits. I make use of match, right? I need my lookup value, which is my best profit, comma. I want to search where my best profit is in the location of the data set, right? I need an exact match, so I put 0 and I close my bracket, right? It has given me position 3. And if you look at it, 1, 2, 3, right? And that's my answer. So the next thing is to write index, right? Order, this is where my answer is, comma. What location do I want? I want location 3, and I can close it, and I press enter. That way you can see that it has given me my best order quantity, right? So I'll need everyone to give me what is second smallest based on profit. Okay. Am I fast? Okay, that's fine. Right. So now, based on this, right? Okay, so based on this, right? This is our, let's say, let me just call it an assignment. Second smallest based on profit. Yeah, second smallest order based on the profit. I want everyone to do that. Not now, later on, right? Now, this is another assignment, right? I need to give me, in each of these columns, I need you to determine the best order, which is this, based on the profits in each category. And the answer will be listed here. Now, this particular test, the principle around, it tests two things visually. It tests your understanding of referencing, right? And index and match. So I'm also leaving that for everyone to try it, right? And I also have another one here too. To return based on each of the location, southwest, east, north, what the number of views will be for each of these programs based on the region. So these are another assignment. Yeah, so 3 assignments for you alone on index and match, right? To test your understanding. Against next class, I would most likely next week, Saturday, I will solve it. However, I only solve it if I get 5 solutions before the class, right? Sure, I would. Sure, I'll share the file. Yeah, so now that's fine. Some products, I would, there's a magic you can do with some product, right? However, for the purpose of this class, I would not overstretch it. But this is what I will tell you. Following the name is some products. The name is some products. Uche, I don't know why you can't hear me. I think everybody can hear me. I don't think I have any issue with anybody here. If anybody cannot hear me, let me know. Maybe it's the fan. I can turn off the fan. Okay, everybody can hear me. Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay, so that most likely is from the other end. So now, there's a function called sum product. What sum product does is that it finds the sum of products, right? So let me just show you a quick, simple example, right? Rank between 5 to 20. M round. So this is a typical scenario, right? Where you have quantity times price. Yeah, quantity times price. Now, this is our sales value. Typically, the total value is what? 40,500. So normally, when we have quantity and price, we'll first multiply each of them and get the sales value, then add all of them together. What we've typically done here is sum of products. Why do I say so? We find the product of 2 numbers, sign the product of 2 numbers, then sum of all the products together. right? And that's the idea behind it. So Excel actually, okay. Excel actually has a function called sumproduct, right? And that sumproduct, what does it do? It finds the product of the numbers and sums them together. It could be more detailed, right? But for this class, I don't want to go too deep into sumproduct. However, we can spend 2 hours talking about sumproduct alone. But I will just make you understand that that function exists and is very, very powerful. So what does it do? It just simply takes the array sumproduct, first array, comma, sumproduct, array, comma, second array, and close it. Can you see that it gives me the same result as this, right? But people who are quite deep in Excel will tell you that it has far more advanced use, right? But probably the class will stop here. So now that principle is what we want to just simply apply here and say that we have units of products and we have their prices based on their cost based on velocity. I can easily write some products. Select the array here, comma, select the second array here, and I'll close it. And that is 1,600. Now, this is similar to if I had done this multiplied by this. Yeah, and I can do this. F2, Control Enter, my shortcut, find the sum of everything along this column. Yeah, and now do the sum of everything here. Can you see the same result? Yeah, so you can imagine the process I've gone. With one function, I write it once and I get the answer, right? Before we move on to the next session, we are done with index and match and sum product. Any question, please? The chat room is open for everyone. Okay. So, in the absence of no question, okay, sum products. So, like I said again, sum products, what it does is that it finds the products, right? That multiplies two numbers together, then sums all the products that you've gotten and find the answer, right? So typically how it works is that okay, how it does is that it multiplies the numbers together and now adds all of them together, right? So I gave a simple scenario where you have quantity times price. Typically, if you want to get the total value of your sales value, right? What you do is say you multiply each one. It multiplies each one by one, right? Multiply one by one, get your total, find the sum of all of them together. However, you can simply just write one formula or one function, sum product. Select the array, comma, select the other array, close it. And what is that? It multiplies each one by one and gives the entire result, which is 4,500, exactly as we have it here. And that's what it does. Yeah? So that's it. Okay. Now, if you've gotten that principle, you are home and dry, right? Yeah. Okay. Now, the next step will be a little bit more detailed. We're now going to application deep dive, right? And the first scenario is the loan schedule. I'm going to recreate. I'm going to delete this loan schedule. I'm going to leave the original. I'm going to go to the old one, and I'm going to recreate this from the very beginning. Yeah? Yeah. So we have here, right? So what I will explain now is you're going to see me combine different things in this particular scenario. and just bear with me. And this is quite deep, so I advise everybody to pay attention. You see me apply so many things we've learned so far in one place, right? And if I see that it's a little bit complex and people are not getting what I'll do, I'll defy it to the next class, right? Because I know myself that it's going to be complex in a way. However, this would help us see how well we've understood the basic function that we taught so far from day 1 to today. Yeah? So now, typically, we know our loans. We have the principal amount, we have the loan tenure, we have the interest rate, we have how we intend doing the repayment, and we have the loan start date, the number of days in a year, and all. And that's what we work on in the loan, right? Typically, what would happen is I like to put the periods, right? What I call periods. Periods are just basically like the number of months for me, right? So I can put 2 here, highlight both of them. Let me see. Yeah, Ctrl Z, 1 and 2, highlight both of them, and I just drag down and to help me fill the sequence. Yeah? So I'll fill it all the way. Now the next step is that I know my loan start date. My loan start date has already been given to me. And I select my loan start date, right? My end date is, I want to do it on a monthly basis so that I always have my start date and my end date, right? Can someone tell me the function I'll need to get the last day in any month? POM, right, fantastic, okay. Now, I simply do that by saying POM, choose my start date, comma, and I put my 0, and I'll go to my end date, right? We know that if I put my last date in my previous month plus 1 day, I get my start date of the following month, right? Yeah, all right. So the next thing is I bring this down. So I get my end date. I highlight both of them. I can easily just double click the edge and it fills it all the way down and it fills my start and end date, right? Now, I've gotten the period start and end date for all my loans for every month, right? The next thing is that I will not put any figure here, but I can, okay, let me even do this so that it's clearer. Yeah, I create a space here. My loan, whatever is my opening in a month will be my closing for the previous month. Yeah, I press enter because my opening for last month will be my closing for the previous month, right? That's one. My drawdown will be in my addition column. All I need to check is that is the start date of the loan, is it equal to the date I'm looking at to bring in a drawdown? So what do I need to do that? Can someone tell me the function that will help me determine whether to put the principal or not? Yeah, I'm expecting a response in the chat room. Okay, Helena, you can send a chat. You can just send a chat, or you can just unmute yourself and see what. Helena. Okay, so this is the question. I said we want to draw down on the existing loan. What formula or what function do you think I need to put here to confirm whether it is the right time to bring in the principal amount or not? Okay, so no, after no response, the answer is if statement, right? So I simply write a simple if this date is equal to the start date. Now, because of this date will be changing, but this one will not change, I will lock it with F4, right? If it's equal, then bring down my principal, which I also lock again. Otherwise, put 0, right? Yeah, so that's it, and that's for that part. Now, typically, what should happen is that my closing balance of my loan. I can create two elements, right? As much as possible. Okay, no, I'll create two elements. The loan balance, I don't want to factor in my interest accrued on my loan because I don't want it to overstate what the loan balance itself, right? So I'll not include it. So typically what will happen is that I will say my closing balance will be my opening plus addition less the principal repayment, right? And that will give my closing balance for loan. Yeah? And that gives my closing balance. Yeah? That will give my closing balance of loan. How do I compute my interest accrued? My interest accrued is actually principal. You remember in secondary school, we say principal times rates times time, right? Now, we know principal. Our principal is whatever is outstanding. So that's the sum of these two, right? Our rate, as we've been told, that 23%. And our time is the number of days between first to the end of the month, right? Okay, well, in this particular scenario, we're not doing IPMT. We want to use something that IPMT will not really test our knowledge of all the functions we've used so far. So we're trying to use something that will test our knowledge of other functions we've done throughout the class, right? So we're trying to avoid using IPMT. MPMT can calculate your interest, but however, we don't want to leverage on that, right? We want to go the old school approach, doing principal times rate times time. Now, don't forget that our interest is annualized, right? But what we want to do is for just 1 month. So how do we do that? We simply write what's our principal in the particular scenario. We'll say into brackets, opening plus addition, close the bracket, times our rate, which is 23%, which will lock, right? Times, or let's say divided by the number of days in a year, lock it again, 365, times the number of days in a month. In this particular scenario, there are different ways to determine the number of days in a month. You can either simply do day and pick the last date of the month and close it. That will give you the number of days in a month straight up, right? Without thinking. It solves the problem about that. This way, we computed interest accrued. Simple and easy, right? Interest accrued as in computed without the problem. Yeah. Now, the next step is principal repayment. We've been told that you'll be paying, repayment will be done every 3 months, meaning that the first repayment will be done 3 months from now, right? Now, I'm going to use a function which we've not used before, and I'll explain each of them in scenarios for you. I'm going to make use of a function called mode, MOD, right? I'm going to make use of a function, I'm going to make use of if, right? I'm going to make of mode and if. What mode is, if you remember when we were in secondary school, we talked about, when you talk about the mode of a number, right? Whether it will give you a remainder or not. So for example, if you do mode of 3, meaning that any number that is divisible by 3 will give you 0. Now we'll combine the mode function and the if statement, because we know that anytime any number is divisible by 3, that number falls in the period we need to do a repayment. Let me repeat myself. We'll make use of mode. Mode is the formula that returns the remainder when given a divisor. So for example, let me just quickly do something here. Is equal to mode, right? I choose this number and divide by the divisor, which is 3 in this particular scenario. For in this particular scenario, this is 3 here, which you can lock. Yeah, and close it. Can you say it gives me 1? Let me drag down. 0, 1, 1, 2, 0. Yeah. And if you look at it, we've been told that repayment will take place in every 3 months. Right? It's going to take place in every 3 months. The idea now is that we already know that with mode and a combination with if, we can always get the months where we need to bring out a repayment. Right? Now, what I typically do is that I'll create a line called amount of principal to be repaid. Right? Assuming that what we'll be paying in principal is fixed every month, right? All I need to do is say this divided by the tenure, right? times the frequency of repayment. That will give me how much I need to be paying every quarter because I'm paying every three months. So typically, there are 12. Yeah, now I need to be paying every quarter 375,000. Now, if you see the principle 0 and 3, right? Third month, 6 and 0, third, 9 and 0, third. So already it helps me guarantee the fact that every 3 months I make a repayment. Before I go further, does anybody have a question before we now write combine mode and if together to determine the months where we're making repayment? Okay, so I said mode again. Explain the concept of mode. Mode, if you remember back in secondary school when we were using mode, you say mode returns the remainder, right, after the number has been divided, right? So what I'm saying now is that, for example, if I change this to 4, for example, let me hide all this. Alt D G G. Sorry. Alt A U U. Yeah. Let's assume I change this to 5, for example. Let's assume I change this to 5, for example. Right? So that means I'm paying every 5 months. The idea is that on the 5th or any number that is a multiple of 5, I do a repayment, right? The number can help me do a function that can help me do a check that is an anniversary of every 5 months is mode. Because what mode will help me do is that it will return a remainder when the number is not divisible by 5. When the number is divisible by 5, it will return 0, right? So meaning that a quick check is that every 5 months, 5, 10, 15, you can see that it's already helping me do what I hope to achieve, right? Yeah? Who is stopping us? Yeah. So that's what mode will help us do. It will help you return the remainder after dividing number by a particular divisor, right? And that's what we've done here. So now the idea is that if you now put this into repayment and you put if, right? I do a check. If the remainder is 0, so I write MOD, choose the period I'm interested in, comma, my divisor is the frequency of repayment, right? If the return is equal to 0, it means that that month is divisible by 5 or divisible by 3. As a result, it means that I can do a repayment in that month, right? So I do a minus and I lock it on 625, right? Otherwise, put a 0 and I close my bracket, right? I can simply just drag these two and double click down, and it shows that every 5th it brings a repayment. Similar here, I can drag this down. I know my last repayment is what? Yeah, 48. Yeah, I have that. I can do my opening too and just drag it down. Yeah, okay, let me don't put the minus sign. Automatically it knows that it's negative, so I just close it and double click bottom right. So I don't know why you can't hear me. It must be from your end. My mic is not on mute, so you can check. Yeah. Okay. Now the reason why this didn't work because of the number of months is not divisible by 5, but we can handle that. But let's just turn it to the number that is divisible. So 4, and if you check it all the way to the bottom, see the final figure is 0, right? So like I said initially, it's not like it's not meant to include it. I'm trying to separate interest from principal itself, right? I can create the scenario whereby the interest accrued is factored into it. However, because of how the loan schedule is structured, if I factor the interest into the principal amount, it means that even when we've not done repayment, the interest itself is already accruing itself like a compound interest. So however, I don't want that scenario. That is why I'm not factoring the interest in the closing balance, right? I'm not factoring it. However, I'll create a scenario, right? Don't forget I've not done the element of the interest repayment, right? By the time I do the interest repayment, you see me do it. And I'll factor the interest repayment as a separate section on its own. Now, for interest repayment, I'll make use of a function called offset, right? Now, what offset will do is that it will help you select a range given So what offset will do is that to help you select a range, right? Giving a particular range to a particular position, right? Another one to do here. Because at every point in time, we want to add all the interest that's been accrued in the last 4 or 3 periods, right? So that's what offset will do. And let me show you what happens with offset. We have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for example. I come here and write offset, right? I tell it the location it should start from, right? I don't want to tell it the number of rows. I don't want to tell it to move. So position, number of columns I don't need. The height, I won't tell you the height. I want the height to be 3, right? And I close it. Sorry, -3, not just 3. Hold on. Evaluate. Hold on. Okay. I think I know what to do. Hold on. So people are chatting, distracting. Hold on. There's something wrong somewhere. Hold on. Offset. Yeah. -3 and 1. Why does this function want to disgrace me today? Nah, there's something wrong. It's weird. But let me check. Would I forget this thing or not? It happened. Don't mind me. I don't know why it wants to embarrass me today. All this to embarrass me. But the principle doesn't change. Offset reference point. I'm not changing. Aha. So now, I was wondering how did it just embarrass me that? So it was a question of the parameters that entered. So let me just write it again so you understand. Is equal to offset. Yeah, the reference position, comma. I'm not entering the rows, so I put a comma. I'm not entering columns, so I put a comma. I want my height. Because I want it to go 3 steps backwards, I put -3, for example, right? The width is 1. I'll explain and I'll show you what happens. Now, I would add this. I will sum all of them together. Sum. And close the bracket. It says give me 15. What it has done is added these 3 data together to give me 15. Yeah? So let me just explain the principle behind it. Now, what happens is that offset tries to get a range of data given a relative position. So for example, let me generate some random numbers. Yeah. What offset will do is that you give it a position. Let's say, for example, you give it position 27. You now tell it to get the data, move 2 steps downwards from 27. It goes to 34, 34, maybe to 10, for example. Move 2 steps to the right. You move from there to 36. You now tell it at 36, so select 3 columns upward, right? If you want to do anything upward, use minus sign. If you want to do anything downwards, use the positive sign, right? If you want to do anything to the left, that's rows, it will be minus. And if you want to go into the right, that's plus. So basically, the idea is that at times when you're writing formulas in Excel, right, you want to make something dynamic. And this is a scenario where you want to make your relative position dynamic. If, for example, I'm going to write offset, for example, and I want to pick just 36 alone. 36 is 3 columns down, right? Then, sorry, 3 rows down, then 2 columns to the right, right? That's 36 in this position. I want to write offset for it. It's equal to offset, right? I choose the location. How many rows do I want to go? I want to go 3 rows down. How many columns do I want to go? I want to do 2 to the right. And I want just a size of 1,1. Can you see it's giving 36? What has happened is that what has happened now is that I've told Excel, right? Take me 3 steps down. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Then I tell it 2 steps from, I am taking it to, it takes 2 steps, 1, 2, and stay there. Don't change the size because I said it give me size 1, 1, 1, right? And that's what I've done. But in the scenario whereby I want it to pick 3 cells down like this, 36, 33, and 18, I'll specify 3 in this place. Right? I'll not say 1, but I'll say 3. However, it will give me an array of data, meaning that it will give me 36, 33, and 18. One cell cannot occupy it. So the best way for me to handle it is tell Excel to sum those 3 data together. And I say sum, right? And I close the data. And I say 87. If you look at it, if I pick 36, 33, and 18, the sum of them is what? 87. Yeah? It gives me the data. If, for example, I don't just want these 3, I want it to be wide by 2, right? So instead of putting 1, I will put 2 there, right? And if you look at it, if I take 36, 10, and all, if you look at the bottom, it's 138, which is similar to the figure here, because I've told you to go 2 widths. But like I said, if you want to go to the right, it's positive. If you want to go to the left, negative. If you want to go down, it's positive. If you want to go up, it's negative, right? And that's how it works. Yeah? So that works fine. And that's how offset will work. So now, based on that principle, right? Based on that principle, we want to now apply that concept here, right? Because we want to show by dynamically, it can add all the interest. It can add all the interest that is due, right? It will add all the interest that we have accrued so far in the repayment column. All I need to do is say, any month where I'm making principal repayment, I'm going to make an interest repayment. So I just do an if statement. If this is greater than 0, I know that I'm going to do an interest repayment, right? All I need to do is write an offset function, offset. Choose my relative position. I don't need it to move. So I don't put anything there. I don't put anything in row. I don't put anything in column. It's in height, I need to put a figure. But don't forget that my interest accrued are previous values. So I need to go upward, right? So I need to put minus the repayment, which is 4, right? I lock it, right? My row is just 1. I don't need anything, and I can close it, right? Now, that's not the end to the formula, right? For false, I put 0 and I close it. Like I said, offset will return an array, but I need to sum all those values together because that's the idea behind me handling this particular repayment. So rather than just offset alone, I put sum and I close the bracket at the end. Hold on. Hold on. Let me go back. You Control Y to read. Yeah, sum here. Comma, 0, close my bracket. So I've closed it. With this, I just double click. And you see that if I sum all the last four, 1, 4, 6, can you see my figure here? Add the last four, 422, 422. And that is my loan schedule. Yeah. At the end is 0. My last set of principal interest is what, 50? 38, and I can see 38. So that brings the end to the loan schedule. Any question? Yeah, for those who cannot hear, I hope they can hear now. Little recap, okay. So I try to recreate. Now, first, one thing I want you to understand now is that one thing I'm trying to apply here are two things. I'm trying to see how the functions we learned so far, how we could apply them in creating a template or a schedule. I'm trying to see so that people don't just see that we've done a function and they cannot see how the function can be applied, right? So what I'm trying to do in essence is say, use all the functions we've learned so far and see how all of them in combined form can be used in creating a template. And that's why I chose this loan schedule. If you look at this loan schedule, we've combined so many things. We've combined if, we've combined mode, we've done so many other things, combine absolute and relative referencing and all, right? So the first thing I tried to do was, first thing is that, you know, a typical loan, we have principal, rates, the tenure of the loan, the interest rates, and the plan of repayment. So on loans, you pay every month. If you are paying every month, it makes our life easy, just write 1, right? If you are paying every 2 months, if you just change to 2, if you are paying every 3 months, you change to 3, and you change the if you are paying every 4 months, you change to 4. If you are paying every 6 months, you change to 6. And you can see it's dynamically handling all our repayments seamlessly, right? I'm just showing you how the template works. However, what we're trying to do now is apply certain attributes, and you see how it works. So the first function was, we said, to determine if you would draw down the loan, it's the start date of the loan that determines if we have an addition here. And what do we do? We said is equal to if the start date, which will lock with F4, is equal to the start date here, right? It means that that's the month we need to draw down the loan. We bring that the loan, which will also lock with F4, comma, otherwise you put a 0. That's the first step we did, and we dragged down, right? That's the first thing we did. The next thing we did was we calculated what our interest would be on a monthly basis, right? And how did we do that? We said that interest is actually principal times rate times time, right? Principal times rate times time. So all we need to do is say, what is our outstanding principal? Is opening plus addition. Yeah? Close the brackets. My laptop has on. Chai. Okay. Escape. Is equal to open the bracket, this plus this, right? The next is multiplied by what? The rate, which is 23%, which will lock with F4. Now, we said that that's the interest annualized based on annual interest. However, we need to get how much interest we charge per day. We lock it again. However, this period, we're not focused on what we need is for the particular month, right? So we need to multiply by the number of days in that month. So I said, instead of doing end date minus start date, we can actually just do the day, what's the day of the last month, right? Of the month, the last day in the month, which is 30, right? And we get the number of days in that month. With this, we've calculated our interest, right? And that gives us interest, and we can drag down. Yeah? The next step after that was say, for principal, because we said that the payment plan is every 6 months, or let's say for example, let's return to 3 months, we have our interest. We said the loan tenure is for 48 months, meaning that we can get on a monthly basis, the total principal repayment is actually 125, but we're paying every 3 months, and we know that the loan is being paid on an equal basis every month, right? So what we have to do is do 125 times the number of months involved, which is 3 months, which is 375, which we have here. Yeah? 375 that we have here. Now, the next step is now to say that we only pay when it's due, and we pay every 3 months, right? So what we now tried to do was apply the principle around using the function of mode and if, right? Mode and if, right? We combine mode and if together. So now the next step was now say that in every month, mode will return a remainder when the number cannot be divided, right? And we understand that if the number is a multiple of 3, the remainder will return is 0, right? So we simply just did that, follow that principle and applied it here, and said is equal to if the mode of that number or the period behind by the divisor, which is the number of months where we're doing repayment, lock it. If it's equal to 0, it means you can do a repayment in that month. So we just bring the repayment amount, which is 375, we also lock it. Otherwise, put a 0. And we got our repayments there, and we drag down, and we got our repayment there. Now, the last element, which was now the principle around our interest repayment. We said the interest repayment is based, we only pay interest on the month we are paying principal, right? So we don't need to rewrite the function for mode again. We just need to check if we are paying principal. When we are paying principal, we are paying interest. So we said if in that month the repayment is greater than 0, it means that we are making the repayment in that month. That means we need to pay interest. Interest will now be driven by offset, right? We choose a reference location, comma. We don't put anything for row and column. For height, we said we'll put minus the repayment because we've accrued it in the past. So we won't just add what's on top, right? So I lock it with F4, comma, and I put 1 because the width is just 1. We don't need to bother ourselves because we're not adding things to the left or to the right. We only focus on the column side of it. Close the bracket. However, I said offset will return an array of data. So we need a function that can handle array. And what function can handle array? A simple sum can handle array. So we put offset within the sum, right? And we've done our interest repayment. And put the 0, can close it, and we have it here, right? And we've done that, and we just drag, and we've gotten our. Sorry, I'll drag this here. Drag it here. Sorry, no. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna drag it down. I'm gonna get my figure here. Yeah. Okay, all right, that's fantastic. So with this, we are done with the loan schedule, right? Amortized cost, we want to do a template. It's not today, we'll do that one. But I think there's already a template that accounting has already been shared. I think we'll be sharing the template on amortized cost for quite a while. So I'll just look for one of the mails and share it with you. You can just send a mail to accounting and we'll share the amortized cost template with you, right? So we're done with that. Now, we want to do due dates, right? So I want to clear the existing conditional formatting that is here, right? Click and clear rule. Yeah. So someone reached out and said, oh, we did not do conditional formatting. Okay, so at times you may have a list of invoices, right? And the idea is that all invoices will be due on any invoice date, or this, let's assume that this date here is the date an invoice will be due. Right? And this is the amount. Someone said he wants a template or something that can handle that will flag when an invoice is due. An invoice is due when the date we're looking at is less than or equal to the current today's date. Now, Excel has a function called today that can return today's date, which is called today, right? Control-1 to do custom formatting, and let me just go to normal dates and just click on this, right? Today, can you see? If I open this file tomorrow, this date will change to 22 March 2021. And that's why it will keep changing dynamically. A shortcut to this also, but will not change dynamically, but will return it every day is control semicolon, right? Control and semicolon will return it. Why this one will change every day, this one will remain the same if I come tomorrow, right? That's the difference. However, we need to write a function using a combination of if statements to check that this date is due. And what we need is conditional formatting, right? So we click on conditional formatting, new rule. What we want to write is based on use of a formula to determine which cells to format. So we click on new cells to format, right? Let me close, let me cancel it. I select the set of data I need to flag, right? Select it. Go to conditional formatting, new rule. What I want to apply is a formula. So I click on formula, right? Typically, what my does is write a simple if statement is equal to if, right? Open brackets. If today is greater or equal to this cell, right? I would, instead of locking it, I would unlock it so that it's on relative referencing, return a true, otherwise return a false, right? And I tell it what should it do when is a true. I give it the formatting, it should format it, right? For the sake of this particular class, I choose blue, right? And click OK. Click OK. And if you check very well, if you look into the cells, you will see that all these dates are dates that fall earlier than today's date, which is 21st of March, 6th of February, 24th of February, 30th January, 01. And that's how you flag it. So, for example, if I come here now and I change this date to, for the sake of argument, 21 March 2021, can you see that I flagged it? If I come here and choose, for the sake of February 14, 2021, yeah, can you see that I flagged it? If I come to 31 December 2020, can you see that I flagged it? Because it has done that check, right? So that's how you could do flagging of due invoices using conditional formatting, right? If you don't want to go directly, you can easily just write if today, close my bracket, is greater than or equal to this date, right? Comma, return a true, otherwise return a false, right? With this, you can easily just copy this formula after writing it here, highlight these cells, go to conditional formatting, new rule, use formula, copy and paste it here. That way you're sure, because if you're writing it here, Excel will not give you assistance when writing the formula, right? So you can repeat it at that. Any question? Any question? So let me clear the rule. You highlight this cell, right? Conditional formatting, clear rule. Yeah? So what I said is that, one, instead of going directly, you can go to conditional formatting, new rule, right? Use a formula to determine cells to format, right? Come here, is equal to if, right? Open bracket, today, close the bracket. Today's date is greater than or equal to this cell. You can see that as this absolute referencing, but that's not what I want. I want relative. So you can apply to all the cells. And I put true. And I choose false, right? What should it do when that happens? I choose, oh, okay, should format it yellow. Okay? And apply. Okay. It flags all the dates that fall earlier than or equal to today's date. So if I open this file tomorrow, anything that is from tomorrow and backwards, it will flag it, right? But I said that instead of going into that place to write it once, you can actually write it outside, like I did here. Now copy the formula and take to the location where you are doing conditional formatting and paste it there for ease of understanding. Okay. Olayinka, let's focus on what we are doing now, right? So that let's not deviate into other areas. Let's just focus on what we are focusing on. When it's time for questions, you can ask questions for other areas, but for now, let's just focus on the area we are looking at, right? So now that finalizes flagging invoices that are due or using conditional formatting in a straightforward approach using formulas, right? With that, that brings us to the end of this particular section. Yeah. So that we'll now go to reconciliation. We'll go to reconciliation. So we want to go for a 20 minutes break and come back by exactly 1:50, right? Before we go on break, we can use the next 3 minutes to ask any question based on what has been taught so far. So once again, any question from anybody so far based on what has been done. What? TB. We've not done TB yet. TB, we have not got to the TB side. So we'll still come back to the trial balance and we'll explain the trial balance part. So we've not done trial balance. Okay. So from what I can say, I don't think anybody has any questions so far based on what we've done. So we can go on our 20 minutes break and come back by 1:50. So welcome to the second phase of today's class. Still remain your host, my humble self, Oladile. So right now, we did index and match some products, and we created a loan schedule, and we also did how to flag using conditional formatting. So someone's asking what we're going to do with trial balance. As much as possible, I will not try to focus too much on trial balance, and I'll give you the reason why. Now, for those who follow the YouTube channel, you find out that a lot was done as regards preparing management accounts, where we divided into 3 sections, right? And everything as regards handling a trial balance all the way was worked on in that particular scenario, right? So I may not focus too much on it. I will just show you some basic things that we did using it, right? And that's all. And I may not, depending, right? But for now, I would just assume maybe the last thing we'll do. Yeah? Most likely be the last thing we'll do. So now, this is just a fixed asset register where we have the list of assets, the class of assets, useful life, the GL where they represented and all, the costs, and the accumulated depreciation, and the net book value. For those who are familiar with audit, at times, once in a while, you want to do a reconciliation between the asset register and the GL, right? To check that everything tallies and there are no differences, right? Now, typically, can someone tell me one function we can use to summarize this asset register into the various asset classes? Yeah? Anybody? What function do you think can use to summarize this asset register into various classes? Sum if, okay? Any other one comes to mind? Pivot, yeah. Any other one comes to match? Index and match, pivot, 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 pivot. Okay. So pivot has it. However, some if can also do it, but the simplest approach, the simplest approach is actually using pivot, right? So let's quickly do the pivot, right? So I highlight the text or highlight the entire data. I press Alt NV for my pivot, and I press Enter. Yeah, like we normally do. I bring in the class of assets into my row, class into row, and I can bring in my cost, which actually addition, into values, and also bring in my accumulated position into row, right? And I simply summarize my asset register. Yeah. So typically, what will happen most times is that you have scenarios whereby you want to now check that, oh, does this thing actually tally? Does it agree? Right? So in a particular scenario, they've given us our TB for the asset register, where they give us the cost and everything, and this is the total value, asset register here, and we have the figure here. Don't forget, the same way we brought all this, we can also bring in the GL code. Bring it here. Yeah, bring in my GL code. I can go and the design and go to tabular. Yeah, I can go to grand total. Don't show subtotals. Yeah, and I've analyzed it in this format. My cost and account dip. Yeah, I can copy and paste here. Create more columns. I know what, so this is per my asset register, FER. I can easily come here and create per GL. And I can come here and create my variance, right? With Vlookup, I can easily do Vlookup, pick this, right? Comma, select my data array, F4, comma, my answer is in what column? 1, 2, 3. So I put in column 3. I want an exact match, I choose false, close my bracket. And I drag it all the way down, and I get my figures there, right? I like both columns. By dragging like this, these two columns will be of the same size exactly. Now for my account dip, I use the same formula. However, my account dip is 1, it ends with 1. So I add 1 to this, comma, choose my data array, F4 to lock it, comma, choose third column, false, and I close my bracket. Right? So now with this, I can easily do my cost minus cost, right? And I can do my account dip plus the account dip, right? And I can drag down, right? So in simple form, I have done a quick reconciliation between my asset register and my GL, and I can see that there's a difference between the two, but they compensate between the class of cooking equipment and leasehold improvement. So most likely there's something wrong, and that way I can now go and probe further to identify, oh, what's the problem? Why is there a problem? And I resolve it, right? Any question?
Yeah, the variance, please come again.
Okay, so basically, we've gotten the balance of cost and account dip per the GL. We've gotten per asset register. All we're just trying to just do is compare the two to confirm if they are the same. So I'm comparing this cell with this cell with this cell, right? And I'm doing the same for all the categories, right? So if you look at the formula, if I press F2, costs with costs, account dip with account dip, and I'm getting my variance. This way I can tell that, oh, there's a difference, and I need to now probe further and find out why is there a difference between my register and my GL. Normally, they should be the same. So basically, what I just said was that we had an asset register, so nothing fantastic. We already had a report. We pulled it from our ERP. We pulled the report. The asset register already has the classes of assets. It has the asset itself, the cost, and the accumulated position. We now use pivot to summarize it into this format, right? So that we could compare this with the GL. So we did it based on this and brought it down, copied and pasted it here. Then compare with the GL, which we already had from the trial balance, which is this. So we compare the two to see where there's difference between the two, right? And that's what we basically did. We just applied pivots and compared it to what we have on the GL, using Vlookup to bring it here to do that comparison and throw up where there are variances. So, okay, someone asked why I made this tabular. So let me just redo it. Remove field, right? I bring in the GL code. Yeah, I drag it here. Okay. Now, if you click on pivot, it has a section called design. Right? Design. Under design, you have report layout. So you can choose tabular. The other options, compact. You can choose tabular, which will be in this format, right? Then what I now did in total was to take out don't show subtotals. So it will present in this format and it'll be on the same line rather than being on separate lines. That's all I did there. All right. Yeah. So that's what I did there. I don't know if that reconciliation makes sense for anybody. Okay. So last class, someone asked, how could we use Vlookup to reconcile, given the fact that they're different? So how do I look up the account dip? So account dip, if you look at it, cost and account dip, cost ends with zeros, account dip ends with 1, but the remaining 5 digits are the same. So all I did was add 1 to the formula here, right? Added 1 to it. So I added 1 to the cost one to do that for account dip. It may not work in other scenarios, right? Yeah, okay. Now, so last class, someone asked how you do a reconciliation, make use of Vlookup. So generally, first thing we need to understand is that reconciliation is saying that there's someone in point A, another person in point B, right? So you need to know why is it that this one has 2 million and this one has 2.5, right? 2 million and 2.5 million. There are things that have occurred between these two that resulted in why the two of them don't have the same figures. So typically, most times, there are different things that could cause that difference. There could be instances of transactions captured by point A, not captured by point B. In order to arrive at what point B is, you most likely, for those transactions that have been included here, you most likely subtract them. For sake of argument, it's 500,000. Now, there are instances of transactions captured by point B, not in A. For the purpose of reconciling up to point B, you have to add them, right? For the sake of argument, it's 1 million. So that if you add this plus point A figure, you get the figure that point B arrives at, right? So the first thing you need to understand is that for you to do any reconciliation between two, like maybe you're a business, maybe you sell goods to a particular customer and you want to reconcile both books. First, each person has to bring what makes up the balance per their books, right? So you get a detailed list. Me as a customer, also as a vendor, I supplied you goods. This is my books, and this is what makes up my what I've sold to you. And these are the outstanding invoices. The other will say, oh, me, oh, this is my books. This is what I have provided. So first thing is get those two lists together, right? So typically what I do most times is say, I use Vlookup where both parties have that unique reference, right? That will reduce my burden. Some other places require manual labor, but first it reduces my burden. So what do? I simply use Vlookup, assuming that the two of them have used the same invoice reference. So Vlookup, I start for invoice 1, right? I confirm that I can find it in the other list, right? This is me confirming using Vlookup, right? And I double click. Now, anywhere I see any means that this figure, this particular invoice, so this guy has it, but the other person doesn't have it. That makes my life easy. So in the first list, in my reconciliation, I have 2.7 million, which was the vendor's position. I copy, 2.7 million, I copy it, vendor. Control C. So I paste the balance there, right? The vendor is saying that the customer owes him 27 million. First already, without going too far, all the places where they are earning, he's saying that those invoices, they are not even on that guy's list, right? So I highlight everything, I press Alt-A-T, right? Which is to filter, or Control-Z. I can also press Control-Shift-L, which also filters, right? So let me do it again. Highlight all the way to the bottom, Alt-A-T, right? I select everything that is NA. Yeah, so this gives me a list of invoices that he has that the other person does not have. So I copy it to my recon sheet and I create a list. Yeah, I sum them and I get the list of what? Right? In order to arrive at what the other guy has, I do a minus sign because if I take it out, I'm able to I'm arriving closer to what the other guy has. Now, I've use Vlookup to arrive at what I think is here and not in the other guy's book. So I've solved that portion here. I go to my recon, customer side. I look for what is in his own books. Yeah, using this. And I go to my vendor sheet, select the columns, right? Comma. What I mean is it does the first column 1, comma, and false. And I close my bracket, right? Double click. So in particular case, all the invoices are there. The next step for me is to find out that, yes, the invoices are there, but are they even the same value? Am I carrying the same value as the other guy is carrying? So I copy the formula and paste it here. Press F2 to edit. Come to this place, put 3, and I close it, right? And double click to get to the bottom. Now, I can simply add and check that they have equal values, right? They have equal values. So I found a scenario, yeah, that's this one. This one is having 94, this one is having 400, right? So the two of them are not having the same values. Oh, ref 1, ref 1. So you can see ref 1, ref 1, they're both ref 1, ref 1, right? In the books here, in the vendor's book, the reference is what? Reference 1, reference 1. However, the value is actually correct. But because they say you say reference and using Vlookup, Vlookup has failed us here. So we know that here there's no problem. It's just an issue of ref 1. The reference is used, right? Yeah, so there's no issue here. So you can easily go because you can see the values are the same thing. As we've done here, we need to also go to the vendor side and replicate the same thing. the formula which we've used, yeah, but now look for column 3, yeah, put it there, double click, yeah, highlight again, port 80, port 80, and I can easily do if error, and I can easily do amount here plus amount here. If error, put 0, because you don't want anything that will show error, and double click here. Yeah, so there's no issue. This is the only place, and we know why there's a problem here, right? These invoices don't exist. So in a way, with what I've done, there are no other issues relating to this. So if I do my balance plus reconcile an item, I have 23 million. If I check the customer's books, what is the value per their books? Equal to, go to the customer side, 23. And if I add the two of them together, I get, so I have reconciled the books and I don't have a problem. And this is how me have applied Vlookup in doing the reconciliation. Any question? Oh, so if you think I'm fast, just tell me why I'm saying this. I don't think that, oh, people are moving on and everything is fine, right? Okay, so just tell me so I would not go too far. So the first thing is the general principle around reconciliation. Ask yourself, what are the things that could cause reconciliation when reconciling a vendor and a customer balance? Typical things that could cause that, maybe invoices in one books, in all the other books. Reconciliation of vendor, and that thing that causes reconciling item is withholding tax. The customer or the customer who requested you to provide the service has deducted withholding and remitted it. But meanwhile, you're still carrying that thing as a payable in your books, as a receivable in your books. Now, that's a typical example. And that thing is, the vendor has supplied goods and has submitted invoices. However, maybe it's sitting one of the employees, or the invoices have not even gotten to you yet. Timing difference could cause reconciling item. Another one is that the customer has made payment. However, maybe due to one reason, the bank delayed the transaction, or the transaction was paid into another account, right? Or the transaction was paid and nobody could claim that the transaction related to a particular customer. So by the time you understand those general principles, your principle is now to identify those transactions between the two of them, their books. For me to do those reconciliation, you need both of them to present their books, right? For most transactions, if the books are kept properly, you can have a unique reference, such as the invoice reference. That's why most times people will tell you that when preparing, when submitting invoices, ensure your invoice has a unique reference, so that when it now comes to reconciliation, those things will help a lot. Or when they need clarity, those things will help a lot if an invoice has been settled or not settled, right? So now, I have the list of invoices. So now, if you have something that has the same reference number, it's what you can easily do is make use of what we call count, right? So that you cannot make it unique by adding a reference. But I don't want to do the complexity of count if, and you can add count if so that it will now add a unique reference to each one. If you have multiple instances, you can add a unique reference to it so that each instance will now have an additional reference of 1, 2, 3. But don't worry, I don't want to get to that extent, right? So now, given that we have the list from one customer's list and we have the list from another, the vendor's list, all we need to do is say use Vlookup to find what invoices are in A's book, not in B's book, and what invoices are in B's book and not in A's book, right? So by the time we do that, we identify the transactions that were fully omitted. The next level will now be seeing even the ones we've captured, are the amount correct? There could be transposition error. There could be transposition error where someone to write 500 and let's say for example someone to write 197,000. The person now gonna write 179,000. Automatically there will be a difference. So you compare the amount based on each unique invoice number that the amount both parties are carrying are the same. That could also cause a difference. So basically what we did was the first column, find out if we could find the invoice in A, in B's one. Yeah, how can we find that the invoice in A is in B? We look for it and we identified all the ones that give me any means that we cannot find this invoice reference in that book. So automatically, I identified all of them, filtering using NA, and say, oh, I cannot find them. So automatically, these invoices have been listed in your books, and they are not in the customer's books. That's one. Now, the next thing was that I went to the customer's books, did the same thing. However, all the invoices in the customer's book were actually in the vendor's book, which is fine. Then the third step, I now compare the amount for both sides. And I found out that, oh, the amount was correct. There are no issues. The only issue was using Vlookup where it failed me. But when I went there, I noticed there are two payments, and I went to the customer side, and I noticed there were also two payments, and they were equal amounts, right? Same amount, equal. So that was not a problem at all. So with that, I now created a summary saying that what is the balance per the vendor's books? What were those transactions that were omitted? I took it out from the vendor's balance and I got exactly what the customer was carrying, meaning that I fully reconcile the books, right? There could be other differences, but in particular scenario was just an issue of invoices that were omitted and I've applied Vlookup. Yeah? Any question?
Where do you get that 4.2 million from? That transactions in vendor's book, where do you get that from?
Okay, so now this is what I said. This 4.2 million, can you see? If you remember the vendor list, we had NA. I filtered based on NA. Those are the invoices we could not find. I selected and copied them. And now we are seeing here that make up this list. These are transactions on the vendor's list, right? See it here. Can you see F2? So these are the list of the invoices in the vendor's book that the customer does not have. So by the time you have this list now, you can now find out why is this in my books and not in this books. It could be withholding tax, it could be that the invoice has not gotten there, it could be that they've paid, you've not properly just matched the payments against the right invoice. If I identify them that way.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So for bank reconciliation does not have unique characters. The best you can do for bank reconciliation is use amount and dates, right? So you have, if you post transactions they occur, right, in your GL, most likely the date between the transaction in the bank and the GL will not be far apart. That's one. Then the amount, then the description of the transaction. So if you have multiple transactions that have, let's say 500,000, 500,000, 500,000 in 4 places, if you see all of them together and you find them, what you now see is now compare the narration to know, oh, this transaction relates to this. So all I do for bank reconciliation is sort. I sort from largest to smallest from the bank side and from the GL side, so that they are side by side and try to do matching them one by one. That's how I handle bank reconciliation. Yeah? Okay. So,
Thank you.
yeah, all right. Any more questions? Any question? Okay. So someone said I explained the sourcing one. Okay, let me see if I can find data. The bad thing now is I cannot find data. So, okay, this is what I will say. So as not to waste time, right? Since on, I will try and make part of it in tomorrow on the next class, right? So that I will do the bank reconciliation, right? Next class, maybe I'll spend the first 30 minutes resolving bank reconciliation, right? And we'll see how that works with it. Because I don't have any data to work with now at the moment. Yeah, so no bank reconciliation. Kindly bear with me. Now, the last thing for today is playing around the trial balance, right? I will not overflog this and you try and bear with me, right? We created a class for just manual reporting alone and it was for 3 days. It's on the YouTube channel, right? And you can always watch it. And trust me, we did justice to prepare management accounts from ground to finish. However, I will just show you some few tricks using some if to deal with a trial balance and how it flows into management account. So typically, in preparing management accounts, what happens is that you have what you call your FS mapping, right? Your FS mapping is what you do that you link to your notes, right? And it's in notes that you now link to the face of the primary key statement. Yeah. It's a note that you link to your primary three statements. So what typically happens in that, if you want to create any management account and you understand this underlying principle, what you need is that this FS mapping is actually the mapping of your trial balance, right? And what it pays close attention to is the fact that your trial balance itself, right? If you've gotten your chart of account right, they should actually follow a sequence or a pattern. If they follow that sequence, then preparing the management account is easy. However, if they don't follow that sequence, you can, based on your understanding of the trial balance, you can identify where each of the GLs should be mapped into, right? And even if you don't know by looking at the GLs, their description, you can either one, going deep into the ERP and see what kind of transactions are posted into GLs. Or two, talk to someone who is experienced in the GLs that knows what transaction going to GL. Sit down with him and understand what flows into GL. Then you can map down your trial balance. Now, the major thing you need to understand is that in mapping your trial balance, you pay close attention to what are those things you need to disclose at the face of the financial statement and at the note level. Those are the things that will drive how you map it. Typically, what I tell people is that your financial statement is like a tree, right? The first tree is your financial statement itself. It now has element of IS and what? Your BS, right? That's your IS and what? Your BS. Your IS and your BS. Your income statement is made up of your revenue, cost of sales, admin expense, finance costs, finance income, yeah. You could have depreciation and amortization. Yeah, you can add income tax. Yeah, and you have all that. And all these are within the class of your income statement, right? In your balance sheet, you can have assets, liability, and you have equity, right? Your assets, you have your non-current assets, and you have your current assets. Your liability, you have your non-current liability, and you have your current liability, right? Within your non-current assets, you could have PPE, intangible, deferred tax, goodwill. Right? Within your current assets, you can have inventory. You have trade debtor. You can have other receivable. You have prepayment. Yeah. The current liability, non-current liability, you could have borrowing. You could have deferred tax liability. Yeah. What else? Non-current liability. You could have your lease liability. Yeah. For current, you could have trade creditor. You could have accrual. You could have other payable. You could have statutory payable. Yeah. You could have income tax liability. Equity, you could have share capital, share premium, you could have retained earnings. You could have other reserves. Yeah. So now typically what happens is that basically use these categories to do your mapping. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You could have this to do this is what to form the base of how you map the trial balance, right? Under admin expense, you have categories within admin expense, within finance expense, you could have categories, and that will form your basis of how you would, using this tree, you could now map all these GL codes based on that. Now, by the time you map it like that, right, and you map it based on the various categories, you can now use a function like SUMIF, right, to do a quick summary of what the balances should flow into your notes, right? So let's say, for example, now, if these were our classifications, right, it meaning that I can easily copy this, for example, paste here, use my data, and I can remove duplicates. Hold on. Select here, remove duplicates, current cell alone, remove duplicates. I click OK, right? So I've removed all duplicates, right? Typically, I have my note for PPE. Typically, your note for PPE will be a movement schedule, right? Will be a movement schedule. Your note for intangibles should also be a movement schedule. Inventory can stand on alone. You can have a note for inventory on its own. You can have a loan for trade and other receivable. Cash can be a note on its own. Trade and other payable can be a note on its own. Borrowings can be a note on its own. So, Helena, so this is what I did, right, to remove duplicates. I copied the data from here to the end, copy it, for example. Let me just take it to a fresh sheet, and I pasted it here, for example. I highlight the cell I want to do. I go to data, and I come here, click remove duplicates, and I click OK, right? So you remove all duplicates, and I'm only left to what I want to see. Yeah? Okay, I hope that's clear. So now I have all my categories stated here, right? I would typically, my PP will be a movement schedule, right? But for the sake of this class, let's assume we just want to compute sum of, you can easily write equal to SUMIFs, select the sum range, comma, select my criteria range, comma, and select the criteria itself, and I get my sum. Typically, I like to use absolute because my financial document, I don't start putting minus sign. Absolute will ensure that whatever value I put there, it will always be positive, right? So I have this stated here. Yeah. So he asked me movement schedule. Let me just show you what I mean by movement schedule. Now, so this is a movement schedule, right? This is a movement schedule. The movement schedule shows you the activities that took place in the year for fixed assets. So you have what you opened with, which will be exactly what you have per your last year, right? In terms of costs. You have what has taken place in terms of additions, transfer, disposal, and you have your closing balance. This closing balance should agree with your GL. You have it for cost and accrued dip and for net book value, right? So this is what I mean exactly by a movement schedule, right? So he has it by the various class of assets. For any typical financial statement, you would have this as a disclosure. It's a requirement of IFRS. Yeah? Ugo, hope I've answered your question, Ugo. Okay? So let me go back to our TB. Yeah? Okay, good. So I've got to my PP total costs. I can easily just copy. Intangible. Inventory, I can copy and paste there, right? But don't forget, in my notes, I may not have a line as inventory alone. I will break it down into various elements, maybe finished goods, raw material, consumables. Yeah. Is this ones that you will see the sum of, so that when I add all the categories here, it will sum up to my 267, right? And when I would have done that, is when I'm doing my classification like this, I would have created columns for those classifications so that I can always sum or find the total based on each of those classes. So when you say extended TV, I don't know what you mean, right? To be very honest, right? I don't know, maybe I'm too recent. I think extended TV is old school, right? But let me allow you talk. Yeah, let me hear what you have to say. I say extended TV, I am confused. So let me allow you talk. And let me hear what you have to say about extended TV.
Okay, no, I just want to know, I'm only asking that, can we make use of extended TB, extended balance?
So trust me, when you say extended, I don't know what extended balance is. What is extended balance?
Okay, to me, extended balance, we have this opening. You can just put all these trial balance, this trial balance on the screen. You put it there, then any addition for the year, then it will flow into P or L, final trial balance, then P or L and balance sheet as well. Then from there, we'll move to notes.
So I'm not really familiar with that. I feel not.
Okay.
But what I'm just saying in essence is that there are different approaches I could do. I could do this approach whereby I do my classifications. But what I would just say is, if you can try and watch the video, the 3 series for management account preparation, it may bring more perspective into this, right? I'm really just trying to summarize this because I think that so I'm not to overfollow or repeat what we've done before. That's why I'm not doing it.
All right.
Yeah, so okay, so what you mean is you adjusted. Okay, so what you call extended TV is adjusted TV. What I typically have is, let me explain to you what I have typically when I'm dealing with it, is that I have my trial balance, right? I have my list of audit adjustments in this column, right? Adjustments, and I label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? And I have a sheet dedicated for adjustment, right? Where I put all the entries, debit here, credit here, and I come here and I pass it for adjustment 1. I pass all the entries on this column. Adjustment 2, I pass all the entries on this column. Adjustment 3, I pass all the elements. At the end of the day, I have here my adjusted TV, right? And I sum all the adjustment plus my TV before the adjustment, and I get my figure there, and I drag down, right? If I passed all my entries correctly, my trial balance it equals rise. Why not rise? She should end in 6. Yeah. If I pass all my entries well, this will be 0, and every column like this should also be 0. Yeah. every column along the line should be 0. So I'll pass it and I have my final TV. That way, what will now happen is that I would now put AUU, yeah. I would not, is this column I'll use to link to my notes. However, I will still map everything. I do my first classification, I do my second classification, right? Like I explained, BS income statements, first classification. Here I'll now do asset, liability, equity, revenue, and all. Third classification, I will now have current asset, non-current. Third classification, I can have inventory, trade receipt. Fourth classification, I can now have breakdown my inventory into various classes like that. Is that classification here? I'll make use of some if that will now ensure that the thing now flows into my notes. For it, I don't want to, I'm going to avoid repeating it because that alone, right, preparing that management account is a full-fledged class on its own standalone, right? But at the end of the day, what I'm just making you understand is that the principle I will apply is some if. And it will be so dynamic that I can alter my classifications and you'll be seeing the change on the financial statement or in the management account as the case may be, right? I would yeah. So I think this is right. It's based on basic, yeah. Based on housing, based on transport. Once you when you look at the GL, if you add those GL and you apply that rate, you can see value more. So you can see the classification we applied it here. I'm just trying to show you. So I know that they exist, right? Right. I'm just trying to show that they exist, and that's what we use, right? But then, but with this, we can apply and get our subtotals based on this classification, right? Base F2, classify using this column. Same principle will apply when we're doing other classifications, right? I don't know if that makes sense, so I don't overflog it. Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay, all right. With no other one, right, all I will just say is the plan was to end the class by 3, and we are just 18 minutes to it. So I would answer some questions which people raised, not particular to this class, but I'm also open to questions. So someone asked a question, right, on data validation. Now, if I've done the data validation somewhere, how do I remove it? So there are 2 ways to do it. I can go back to my data validation list, right? And just clear it, take it out, remove list, and go to any value. Okay. And this becomes a normal cell again. Another approach is this is a data validation list, like I can see. I can just copy a cell that is not data validation and just paste it there. If you go there, no data validation again. No more data validation. Now sorted, right? Right. So the next question I know that someone asked me again was about referencing, right? And I said, I'll just explain the general principle. I'll leave you to make an attempt. Excel has 3 types of referencing, or let me say 2, absolute and relative. One is a combination of the other 2, which is mixed referencing, right? Relative referencing is when you don't have a dollar sign on any of the alphabets or the number at all. This is relative referencing you're seeing there. Absolute referencing is when you have the dollar sign before the name tag used for columns. Columns are usually in alphabets, and your rows are usually in numbers, and you have dollar. This is absolute. Then mixed referencing is when you have the dollar just before A or before the alphabet, or you have the dollar just before 1, but you can only have it in 1, and that is when you have what you call mixed referencing, right? So that answers the question on absolute and relative. Based on that, you can apply it, try and do it here and here because I've shared the file. Any other question?
Please, that duplicate. Please, can you try it again? That duplicate, the one you did.
Okay, duplicate. Okay.
Remove duplicate.
So I copied the cell here, right? And I took it on a plain sheet. I highlight the column. I go to data, go to remove duplicates. Can you see it? Click on it. Classification, yes, that's the column. And I just click OK. And Excel remove the duplicates. Yeah? Yeah? That answers the question, Abi Mustafa.
Yes, thanks.
All right, that's fine. So any other question? Okay. While learning day three is just an introduction to financial modeling. We're not building any model. It's going to be a very theoretical class, but it's going to be a presentation in which I'll present a slide and just talk through financial modeling so that people have an idea of what financial modeling entails and how to apply it and where they use it and how it could be applied and the general principle that covers financial modeling. But we're not building any model. It's going to be very theoretical. Yeah. So I'll stop the recording. So look forward to seeing everybody again next week. And that will be our final class. I look forward to getting questions for the first 30 minutes, right, where we properly discuss. Don't forget to share, learn, and help. And don't forget that's the reason why we're here, right? Add knowledge to other people, invite them to Accounting Yard so that we could also help improve the knowledge of accountants as a whole, right? Thank you for making out time out of your tight schedule on this Sunday for that matter. Do enjoy the rest of your week and all the best.